Okay, so today we're going deep on something pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Trichotillomania?
Yeah,
Have you ever heard of this?
it's a fascinating one for sure.
Yeah, it's also known as hair pulling disorder. And we're going to be looking at this blog post from Treasured Locks and Tips Medical Units by Nicole Trahan.
Sounds good.
But this is going to be a really interesting one.
Yeah.
So let's jump into it.
Yeah, let's get into it.
So trichotillomania,
So
it's more than just pulling your hair out.
it's way more than that. Yeah, it's really a bunch of different urges and emotions and habits all kind of mixed up into one.
Yeah, so it's not as simple as it sounds.
No.
So when we say trichotillomania, we're talking about this overwhelming urge to pull out your hair.
Yeah.
And it leads to, noticeable hair loss. But
Yeah.
here's the thing. It's not just the hair on your head.
Exactly. You can pull from anywhere, really. Eyebrows, eyelashes, arms, legs, anywhere. There's hair. It's all fair game. And there's this cycle that happens with it. You get this tension beforehand, this real buildup, and then after you pull, there's this sense of relief.
Oh, wow. So it's not just like the physical act of pulling hair.
Yeah.
There's a whole emotional and mental experience tied into it.
Absolutely.
That's really interesting. So how do you treat that? The blog post talks about a few different ways to handle it.
Yeah. So like many mental health conditions, behavioral therapy is huge, especially CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy.
Mm.
That helps you figure out what your triggers are. So stress, anxiety, certain places, whatever it is. And then you learn how to cope with them in a healthier way.
So it's almost like retraining your brain.
Exactly, like hitting the reset button.
Yeah.
And the source specifically talks about something called habit reversal training. And this is where you replace pulling your hair with a different behavior.
interesting.
So let's say you feel that urge to pull coming on. Instead, you might clench your fist or squeeze a stress ball. Maybe you doodle, anything to interrupt that automatic response.
So you're redirecting that energy to something else,
Exactly, something harmless.
something more harmless.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I am curious, though, the blog also mentions medication,
Yeah.
SSRIs, which are antidepressants.
Right.
How do those fit into all this?
All SSRIs can sometimes help manage the symptoms, but here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
The source also talks about N-acetylcysteine.
NSC.
NSC.
That's an amino acid, isn't it?
It is.
It's like you'd find in a protein shake or something. What does that have to do with hair pulling?
Well, that's the fascinating part. Some studies suggest that NSC could actually help manage trichotillomania symptoms.
Huh.
It's not just about traditional medications,
Wow. So it really highlights how much we're still learning
Absolutely.
about the brain and how all these conditions work.
For sure.
It's really fascinating. The blog post also really stresses how important support is.
Oh, yeah.
Connecting with other people who understand what you're going through, like through support groups.
Yeah. Support groups are so important because when you're dealing with something like this, feeling alone just makes everything so much worse.
Right. And the source also mentions like simple things that you can do on your own,
Yeah.
like keeping a journal.
Oh, absolutely.
So like a hair pulling diary.
Exactly. You track when you do it, where you do it.
Okay.
Write down all your triggers, your feelings, everything. The blog recommends it as a way to get insights into your behavior patterns. Like you're holding up a mirror to what's going on.
That makes sense. So you start to see the patterns and then you can maybe start to change them.
Exactly.
Yeah. The source also mentions like mindfulness and relaxation techniques,
Yes.
like meditation or deep breathing exercises.
Right. It's like hitting the pause button on that urge to pull. You give yourself a moment to choose a different path.
Right.
And mindfulness and relaxation are all about regaining control and managing stress, which is often a big driver of trichotillomania.
Absolutely. Before we wrap up, I do want to touch on something that Nicole Trahan really emphasizes in the blog, and that's the importance of talking to a mental health professional.
That's key.
If you're dealing with this, finding the right path to dealing with trichotillomania often means, reaching out to a professional.
Absolutely. They can help you figure out a treatment plan that works for you based on your specific needs and situation.
Yeah. So we learned about what trichotillomania is, the different ways you can approach treatment. And hopefully this has kind of sparked your curiosity about this really complex condition.
Yeah.
But as we finish this deep dive, here's something I keep coming back to. If trichotillomania is more than just hair pulling,
Right.
if it's about these deeper urges and these connections in the brain,
Yeah.
what other automatic behaviors might we be able to change? What other potential is there to rewire our habits and our responses?
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely something to think about.
It really is. Food for thought, for sure.
Absolutely.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. Thanks for coming on.
It's been great.
And to all our listeners out there, thanks for tuning into another deep dive.
See ya.
We'll catch you next time.
Bye.
Bye.